welcome to another day at Grandmasters here. It is day number 2 of the playoffs this weekend, and we had a pretty weird and wild day yesterday, didn't we, Derek?
We did indeed. It was Staz going on a bit of a tear, to be perfectly honest, with his Hunter. 4-0 in games, 2-0 in series, qualifying very, very cleanly through to the semi-finals. And then a Mage Mirror as well, which kind of reason just went out the window. Yeah, that was just ridiculous at that point.
If you want to watch a very strange mirror, watch the last match from yesterday. It was very, very weird between Alutimu and Dawn, and a very brief update. Dawn did get knocked out. It's going to be Alutimu and Staz moving on to tomorrow, which is the final day of playoffs from Group A, but today we're going with Group B. But before we get into that, we can just talk about Grandmasters and what we are doing here. We've had many, many weeks of Grandmasters now, so it's been 3 regions across the board, and Darren, myself, and a few other people actually, casters-wise, have been covering this region over the course of many weeks, but we are at the playoffs stage now, so it's basically going to be one spot from each region. It's going to book their place in the global finals there in November, and then we do it all again for season 2 to equal 2 players from each region. 2 players, including China, of course, are going to put forward 2 players, and that is going to be your top 8 for the global finals, which is going to be pretty high. But we have like the rest of playoffs and a whole season to get through before that, Darren.
That is exactly right, and I don't know, it feels weird for me to be saying that playoffs is what it all led up to, because Grandmasters in itself has kind of felt like, you know, this is it. But then you remember they're qualifying for something even bigger. Exactly, the whole of Grandmasters is just to get to the global finals. But the format that these players will be using in Grandmasters and in the Masters Tournament, the qualifiers this year, is a Specialist, our new format for this year. A single class format. You bring 1 class, 3 decks of that. 5 cards can be different between those 3 decks, and then you can switch them up in the best of 3.
Yeah, on week 100 of Grandmasters, we are not going to go too deep into the Specialist format, which I'm sure you guys are fully aware of. But let's go deep into the Group B here. We have Shaxi, who finished Division B at number 1, which means he got number 1 seed, which means he effectively starts this group stage at a 1-0 win. So where it says bye, just imagine he had some kind of opponent, but that's his benefit to finishing top of the group. He just gets a win, he moves on, so he's in winner's match. But then we have Surrender, who's actually traveling across from Division A.
That's
as
correct.
The 2 second places swapped places through the group. So we have Surrender versus Tyler in a match number 2, which is going to be the first match of the day, and then it will continue on through that bracket until we have 2 players left, and 1 player will go home. And that is our schedule for the day, Derek.
It is Surrender and Tyler. As you said, with Surrender traveling over from Division A, this is the first time these players will be matching up against each other. 2 absolute powerhouses of the Asia-Pacific region. However, despite Tyler only relatively recently transitioning over to the Asia-Pacific region, moving to Vietnam, he was the number 1 point earner for last year, which I'm sure some players like Rivius in particular will feel a little bit salty about, given that they were so close to getting that spot. But still, with Surrender having a very strong HCT performance a couple of years ago as well. This is, in my opinion, as good as it gets in Asia Pacific.
And you know, same as yesterday, this is going to be the feature match. It's the only one we know for sure. But it's going to be Rogue Mirror. But speaking about the players, I think these are potentially 2 of the biggest crowd favorites as well. Surrender, a very long and storied history in Hearthstone, not only for himself, but being teammates with, you know, very popular players like, you know, Sixo. You can look at Hoy back in the day as well. Like, you know, Surrender's just almost been here from the start. Probably the outside of Kranich, one of the first Korean players to really blow up in Hearthstone in terms of just how popularity is gained across the world, not only in Korea itself. And Tyler, just a lovable Hearthstone player I think everyone across the world loves, you know, from the Americas region all the way to Asia Pacific, even though he, you know, jumped away from Europe to, you know, maybe make a bit of an easier run of it in the Asia Pacific region previous year. I think he's gained a lot of respect from all regions in Hearthstone now.
Yeah, one of my personal all-time favorites in terms of players. I have watched a truly unconscionable amount of hours of him streaming Hearthstone over the years, which I hope to see him do very well and qualify through to that semi-finals. As we can see here, his opponent will either be Staz or Alutemu, depending on where he finishes in the first seed or second seed.
Yeah, so what's going to happen is yesterday, Staz and Alutimu got through the group and Dawn got knocked out, which means today the same is going to happen, but for Group B, which means either Shaxi, Tyler, or Surrender will get knocked out today. The other 2 fill these 2 spots, but it means that they face opposite players again.
Yes.
So, as you said, one player, the Seed 1, will face Alutimu on the right, and Seed 2 will face Stars. And there's the players getting ready to go right into it, I think, pretty quickly with Surrender versus Tyler. The winner will go on to play Shaxi. The loser will wait to play the loser of the winner going on to play Shaxi. Very simple.
That's right. Basically, for any of these players, Shaxi included, despite having got that win in the first round, lose 2 matches and they are out.
Yes.
It's pretty simple. As you can see there by Surrender's jersey, though, as well, you talk about teammates that he's had along the years. I mean, now with him being on T1, he's now teammates with Orange, Fino, and Ball Control, with Fino already qualifying through to the semi-finals of Grandmasters, and Orange in with potential of doing so today as well.
Probably the #1 powerhouse team overall, I would say. Outside in terms of just number of players plus quality of players. When you combine those 2 things, I think it's pretty impressive.
I think in Grandmasters, Team Liquid probably takes the #1 spot at the moment, just because both of their competitors in Frozen and Dog have done so well, with Frozen already getting through to the semi-finals. But that is for the Americas to be worrying about later on in the day. Here in Asia Pacific, we are ready to jump into our first match, the Rogue Mirror, which we were missing yesterday. No Rogues yesterday, just 2 Mages and a Lone Hunter. So I'm glad we're going to see a little bit of the Rogue gameplay, because it's a real cornerstone of the current meta, and I think Surrender is at the top of the Rogue game.
Yeah, and these Rogue lists, I think, almost identical. There's like
super similar.
There's 1 Novice Engineer versus, what is the cut for that Novice?
Snip Snap?
Oh, Snip Snap, yeah. 1 Novice Engineer for a Snip Snap. So Surrender playing the Snip Snap, and then if we move over to Tyler's list, which is extremely similar, as I said, then he is playing the 2 Novice Engineers instead. So it's going to be very similar to the Mage matchup we had yesterday, in that it's an almost identical mirror match.
Yes.
So there is not a lot to go by. So Tyler and Surrender rocking pretty much the same lists.
Yeah, the only real difference in their lineups outside of the Snip Snap versus the Novice Engineer is in their anti-warrior sideboard, going in pretty different directions, which is quite cool to see. Surrender going with the Coppertail Imposter, double War Gear, and Cairn Bloodtooth. I was talking to Orange on Twitter about exactly 1 or 2 War Gears. He was a fan of 1 War Gear, 1 Mojo Master Zihi, but I was still puzzled after his answer. I understood his reasoning of, you don't always want to go War Gear on the Coppertail.
Right.
Sometimes Mojo Master Zihi can be even better against the Warrior, just to deny their Omega Assemblies and Omega Devastators for a few more turns. But I still think it's a reasonable card to go for. And then Tyler on the other side, going with Togwaggle's Scheme, 2 copies of it to counteract the Warriors. Won't matter in this particular tournament, because in playoffs onwards there are no Warriors in Asia Pacific at all.
We did you a favor.
You're welcome.
But funnily enough, though, although it might sound weird that you're talking about a side deck that just isn't going to be used, but with opponents of Tyler and Surrender, these 2 players specifically, and to be fair, even Shaxi, all 3 of these players have played a very significant amount of Warrior throughout Grandmasters. So it wouldn't have been a surprise to see any or even all of them potentially bring Warrior, but it hasn't ended up like that. So now we're going to go into game #1 between Surrender and Tyler. It's going to be an almost exact mirror match going on.
It is indeed. However, the tiebreaker, I suppose, or I think it shifts the weights in one player's favor, is often the coin in these matchups. It's far from, I would say it's not quite as crucial in the Mage Mirror in terms of how important it is to have the coin. But I think Surrender is definitely a slight advantage at the start, at least.
Yeah, I think it's more of a you play differently as opposed to you're going to lose. You know what I mean? You just have to alter play a lot of the time when you're not on the coin in the mirror in this mirror, but in the Mage you were significantly disadvantaged, I would say. So let's just get right into it. Surrender. There we go. So get the right music. Whew. That was too hype for too long.
Way too intense.
That was too hype for way too. Imagine the whole series. I need a break.
I didn't even realize that was so tense until it stopped.
Honestly, so we'll get into the game 100%, but a large amount of appreciation has to be said for this Hearthstone theme, because it is very easygoing and relaxing, as opposed to imagine if that was playing every game, all game.
Yeah, I'd be a wreck.
Yeah. Well, more so.
Yes, more of a wreck than I currently am with my broken arm.
Okay, well, let's get into it. Just a cable rat pretty early on for Tyler, just getting that Lackey on the way. And as we said, Tyler not having coin does not have the option to go for that almost iconic rogue turn of late of coin Miscreant and then having all the options in the world for the follow-up.
Yeah. Surrender, however, does, but it's far from guaranteed as the best play. Surrender has so many options here. We could see coin Miscreant, perfectly valid, curve into SI7 Agent, into the Spirit of the Shark. I agree this is probably the way to go, but we could have just seen Dagger, take it slow, maybe set up for coin Spirit of the Shark into try and get a bunch of lackeys off the Cable Rat. We could have just seen coin Edwin was also something to consider there as well. A whole bunch of options, but I think because of the double benefit of how well this lines up against the just the rat on board as it currently stands, and also saving the Edwin to go super massive later on is very reasonable.
Yeah, now this is the spot you find yourself quite a lot in this mirror if you're not on the coin and your opponent does the Miscreant turn, is that the whole game just changes almost instantly into, oh, how do I defend? Just straight away, it's very much like, what do I do now? Because it's not often, if you're in Tyler's position right now, that you can make a play that gets you ahead right now.
Yes.
It's very much about, what do I do now? What do my next few turns look like? And how do I do that snap turn where you flip the board and kind of come back into the game?
The good thing for Tyler, though, is that in his defensive game plan, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Because very often when you have these kind of hands with all the damage cards, like Leroy and Life Drinker, it just gets worse and worse because you never get close to actually delivering lethal, but you also have no defensive options. That Heist Baron Togwaggle, though, is Tyler's game plan, a one-card game plan as it currently stands. I suppose, you know, Goblin Lackey into Evil Miscreant probably coming down next turn is a nice middle ground just to bridge him over there. But if he can get that to go off, that is definitely Tyler's best chance of coming back.
Both these players as well, throughout their Grandmaster Season 1 journey, have said on different occasions that they felt they just haven't, they've gone through stints of just not playing too well. Tyler said he thinks if he'd actually, you know, not, I think in his words, misplayed and thrown a couple of games, he would actually have been a much more comfortable position to qualify in his group. And Surrender, I think, I want to say it was week 3 or 4, maybe even before, maybe week 2, where he said like, oh, it's not been good enough already. So I'm going to just woof all in, just as much practice as possible, and then he did and turned it round. So pretty impressive from both players, just to at least note that they're I've not been doing my best, I need to step it up, and they have done. So
I agree, and I think we've seen that across all regions of Grandmasters, is a lot of players who I respect a lot not playing up to their usual standard. We saw yesterday a pretty prime example from Frozen, who I believe to be one of the best players in the world. It's perfectly evinced in his record so far in Grandmasters, playing pretty horribly, you know, missing lethal, missing points of damage, just overthinking everything. And he's, you know, it wasn't even that bad what he was doing. He's just so good that it's not good enough from him, and he knows it. You know, he was pretty distraught
Frozen's one of the players I both love and hate. Because I know, I'll tell you, but you know, I'll tell you why I hate him.
My
I
name's
love him
Raven, and I hate Frozen.
Yes,
2019.
He's a great player, which is why I think he's fantastic.
Yes,
but it annoys me because I know for a fact I could give him a deck that is very good, but maybe complicated, that he has never seen before, never played before. You know, doesn't even know the cards. I could give it him 5 minutes later. Oh yeah, rank 1 legend. You know, you just unlock the deck in his mind.
Here's a list of improvements for you.
Yeah, and you can improve this. I'm like, what? Because I feel like Frozen's just one of those players that gets it.
Yes,
I know Orange a lot of the time has said that he has to work very, very hard to learn and understand decks and the game. Whereas I feel like Frozen just unlocks the whole deck in his mind on first glance. It's crazy.
Even then, he's shown that he is still fallible. You know, everyone can.
Not perfect. Yes.
But Surrender, you know, his game plan, to be perfectly honest, I think as soon as we saw the coin Miscreant was pretty clearly set out. If he didn't top deck the Snip Snap, it was SI7 on turn 3, and then he was going to go Shark, he was going to go Double Lackey, and then he was going to go Edwin in the most likely scenario. And I think this was a very, very valid way of going about it. He gets a lot of value off of Miscreant, holds early board control, sets up for a game-winning Edwin later on. This just seems like standard rogue theory.
Just look at this Edwin on 5. Just 2 lackeys and an Edwin is fantastic because the Shark is down.
Has the ability to clear off all the lackeys on this turn as well to deny a turn 6 Heist Baron Togwaggle, which I would value pretty highly. It's not always something that you have to play around massively, but given that Surrender is, I would say, pretty clearly in the lead as it currently stands, he can afford to play around the potential ways that he falls behind.
Wait, can he play all 3? Oh, the lackeys, yeah, he just leaves a 2 on him.
Yes.
For some reason, I had it in my mind that you meant you could clear the board. I was like,
No,
I don't
sorry.
think you
Yeah,
can. But no, I'm sorry. You were right, and I was just missing information for some reason.
I think this is a mistake from Surrender. I think the benefit that he gets by clearing off the 2-1 instead of the 2-1 squashling, instead of one of the lackeys, is that a dagger hit has to go into the Spirit of the Shark to clear it off. I don't think that is worth it to not play around Heist Baron Togwaggle.
I'm going to ask a weird question. Is Surrender ever bothered about the echo from Squashling?
Huh?
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because
maybe.
it's a weird card. It heals a lot. It echoes, and it puts more stuff on the board. I don't know if that's good enough. I'm not saying that's why he did it and that's why he's right. I'm just, it wasn't just a 2-1 is my point.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, I think actually the bigger thing here for Surrender, which, I don't know, I kind of didn't really factor in, is just how big this Edwin is. And if Tyler does want to go for Heist Baron Togwaggle, it's just too much damage.
He just gets hit for 10.
Which we can see here. Tyler had the Heist Baron Togwaggle, he had the lackey on board, and he still was cornered into going for the sap instead. So you know what, from Surrender, I take it back. Well played.
Funnily enough, though, Tyler has gained the board with this turn, and the one-off sap that both players are running in their primary deck was just, when it's there, it shows up, doesn't it? I feel like it's one of the most singular impactful cards just in the game.
Yeah.
It's just 2 mana. Your thing doesn't really exist anymore. is like in Rogue specifically, because it's such a tempo-based class. I feel like it's so powerful, and when it works, it really, really works.
I was weaned on the days of Q-Block and Even-Lock, where getting rid of those Void Lords, there is nothing better. Or a cube full of Void Lords, sapping that was just...
It just wins games, though, doesn't it? That's how crazy it is. It just wins games. Look right now, Surrender, I would argue, is now just behind. And it was just because of that one sap. If Tyler couldn't sap, his turn's terrible. Or not terrible, but significantly worse. Whereas now just one sap, the Edwin, the Shark got cleaned up easily. The rest of the minions just didn't matter, even if they were left up. And Tyler's ahead. Now he can go Lackey into Togwaggle. Then he can 1 to more cards at a 0 mana. Like, it's all on Surrender right now.
A really good spot.
Yeah.
I mean, that sap was absolutely crucial. Yeah. And, you know, good play from Tyler as well, because bouncing back this Edwin, I think it was unlikely to go disastrously wrong. Like, there's pretty much no combination of cards where on 6 mana, Edwin comes back with a 10.
Yeah, the refill, yeah.
And now the relatively slow play, at least in the immediate, of Heist Baron Togwaggle. Tyler finds the time for it. He's going to have to tank 6 damage in order to get it off, but I think with a Zilliax and a Life Drinker in hand, he's more than happy to do so.
I wonder if there's ever a sap from Surrender.
Interesting.
And go aggro. He has Leroy, he has Eviscerate.
Maybe.
Because that Togwaggle is not really getting played for a while.
Cable Rat Sap Edwin. Because I mean, if Tyler goes if Tyler goes Togwaggle again next turn, that's a horrendous play.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
So Sap, Togwaggle's done something.
Yeah.
It's too late. It's happened. If you Sap, is Tyler really going to spend 6 mana after using 3 mana for a wand? He won't have 6 this turn. And then, is he really going to play it the turn after when, you know, you'd imagine he's probably got better things to do? Whereas if Surrender plays more aggressive, uses his sap to try and gain the board back, Leroy, Eviscerate, has a follow-up plus whatever he draws soon. I think it's solid.
Surrender agrees.
I really, really like this play from Surrender.
Yes.
Both players now using sap to just gain control of the game.
Right, and I think
or at least help gain control.
This is good recognition from Surrender, right? Because Tyler, both saps came down for very different reasons. For Tyler, it was to just buy him that little bit of time to go for the value route because he stops taking so much damage. For Surrender, it was just to say, okay, I'm losing the value game so hard right now, I have to just push for tempo, push for damage.
Ooh.
Oh, that is a reasonable wand.
It's
I would say.
why wand is
Oh
so
my
good,
God.
right? Because you can effectively just draw a card and not reduce its cost sometimes, which is yes, backstab in this instance.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. You've drawn 3 cards for 3 mana, which is already better than Arcane Intellect, and they cost 0. It's like, oh.
This is, yeah, from Tyler there was kind of a tough choice. I think you picked Defense Matrix literally just because it's the cheapest one. Like Hex was not necessary because he's already found the Execute to take out the Edwin.
Can backstab and use a 1/1 on clearing another 3/3.
Yeah.
Can also eviscerate, clean all this up, and play the auto defense matrix.
And that is, as was somewhat expected, a board clear.
It's a pretty good turn. It's my stamp of approval.
And Tyler now going for the value route. His hand pretty perfectly complements that as well. I mean, you know, it's not the dream hand because the Leroy is a little bit more aggression, but literally just Ziliak's Life Drinker is absurd. No damage plan gets there from Surrender anymore. Absolutely.
And if he ever needs to gain some value even later on,
yeah.
he does just have Tog plus a Lackey whenever he gets one. He still has a Miscreant in the deck. I think he still has a Cable Rat.
Yeah.
He's running 2, right? Yeah.
I think he's played 2.
Did he play 2 Cable Rats?
So. He's played a lot of Lackeys.
I think he's got a Miscreant. I'm fairly sure he's got that.
Yeah, I think you're right. That auto defense matrix as well is actually just low-key kind of insane here, because if we were to see Ziliax coming down and trading in, that's just such a great defense on the burglar. That's pretty good though. That helps Surrender for sure.
Unity, precision, perfection.
I do like it from Surrender though, because you can't just play around any Paladin secret, right, and just hope nothing bad happens. It just doesn't work like that.
Man, that's just the ultimate Ziliax counter, right? Like, it doesn't even get the heal because it didn't deal any damage.
I guess though, like, outside of a bit of health, the outcome for most of the Paladin secrets is the same, right? If it's get down,
That's the
it's the same. If
Redemption,
it's redemption, it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
Except
I mean, this was definitely
the
the best.
dagger.
This was the best one because it denies healing, right?
Yes.
I mean, the best one that involves resurrection. Like there was some argument for whatever the plus health one is called. No, I forget with the new cards. If they play a spell, get plus health. Yeah.
Oh.
Whoa! That's insane. That's like, what combination of cards is better than that? Like Edwin, exactly? Maybe.
No,
not even that. Like that's absolutely insane.
I don't even think it is. I look at Surrender. Surrender's like, what just happened? Look at his face. Oh. Surrender's like, I don't understand.
Excuse you.
Stop taking my good cards. And now uphill climb. Uphill climb doesn't do it justice, does it?
Yeah, this is an overhang at this point. This is like climbing upside down. Okay, well, what does Surrender have? It's a full board for Tyler. So, is there any chance of seeing attack face self backstab? Does that set up for anything at all? If you attack face, dagger face, no. Like, there's just no outs that way, I don't think. Because he could look at locking out the board so Ziliax can't be played. And
there's
then
enough damage spells though, right?
Yeah.
From Tyler,
yes,
I mean, he can self-kill his own stuff.
You're right. I'm just trying to think of any way that Surrender can come back in this one. Because as it currently stands, I think he will be on a similar wavelength to me, given that he has less information about the cards. It kind of puts us on an even playing field where I know all the cards and he knows half. He just needs to go for damage, right? Yeah. Like, he's not winning on board. He's not winning on value. He needs to get Shadow Step and
Blade
kill.
into SI. I mean, it could be worse. It really could be worse. That's what, 4 damage from hand with a 3/3 and a 2/2 weapon.
Like 6 damage, right? On swing as well.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah. I mean, I don't. He just has to, right?
Yep. This sets up for no heal into top deck Shadow Step lethal. That will not come to fruition. We can quite clearly see.
I definitely like the kill on the shark, though.
Sure.
Unity, precision, perfection.
Camera's right back up again.
Nope. Can Myra possibly do something?
What can he get? I mean, there are death
nowadays.
It just says discover a death rattle minion, right? So it can get deranged doctor.
Yes. Yep. It just can't get
rotten apple.
It can't get death rattle from other classes. That's all.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So rotten apple bound, deranged doctor. Abomination to clear the board. Yeah, safeguard, stuff like that. But it all involves it dying, which it wouldn't do on that turn. Is the problem. Wait, if it discovers Rotten Applebound, you get the card right away, so you could then play Rotten Applebound as well.
It's gonna go for him. Let's see. Okay, Curse Castaway has Rush.
You can't
play it, but still,
he's still dead. But
is there any
great job?
Is there any combo cards you can get?
I don't think so, especially when there's a Ziliax on the board.
I wonder.
Yeah, Surrender's dead.
Maybe Poetic discovered a death rattle and now he needs to do his own. Or a rattlesnake for some reason.
Well, that's the death rattle.
I wonder.
It's weird that they actually do make that noise. I've had rattlesnakes before.
I don't think I've ever seen a rattlesnake.
Oh really?
No.
I've had some before.
You've had some. It sounds like you've eaten one.
Not for tea. Oh, the Ziliax trade really going nuts there.
I think that's just game. Yup.
Oh,
That's
you know
just
what?
game.
I half forgot about Waggle Pick. I was like, wow, if Surrender had a Waggle Pick this game, it might look a little bit different.
Yeah.
All the extra damage that could have been pushed.
I guess. I think there was just too much Tyler to shut it down. Like after that tempo swing where the Edwin was dealt with, it was just too much. And this really does come back to Surrender's early game plan, because I think the later turns for Surrender, it was excellent recognition. There was one avenue to victory, which was push everything face, and Tyler has no heal. Clearly it did not work, because Tyler didn't have the heal available, but I think it was good recognition.
Yeah.
The early turns, however, where it was, I think, a lot more difficult to figure out what was the correct line of play, I said at the time I agreed with him, and I still think it was the correct way to go. It was a very, very clear game plan. I mean, I think right from turn 2, he had turns 2 through 5 set up, which was like Coin, Miscreant, SI, Shark, Edwin, and he did that with only the substitute of Snip Snap off the top, which was even better. The problem with that is that it was, even from turn 2, I think he could have seen this is kind of weak to Sap, to deal with the Edwin, and which is why I think there was some consideration of holding on to it to go for an earlier Shark. I still think it was correct, though.
Yeah, I think it was too good because Sap's a one-of, and if it doesn't come down,
you win on the spot.
I don't know what's in the deck that beats a 10-10 Van Cleef that early on. I think the biggest problem for Surrender was after the Sap, but after the Sap, the hand was not good enough to even make an okay Van Cleef, right? If there was like a couple more cheap cards, like a couple of lackeys, and you could have gone Lucky Van Cleef after, and it's big enough to make an impact even post-Sap, it would have looked a little bit better. Excuse me. But yeah, I think the Sap combined with what was Surrender's hand at that point was a little bit backbreaking, and although he fought back, it was never enough. And then just the Blink Fox with the Shark from Tyler getting like
that was pretty fun.
The best cards that you could possibly have wanted was pretty insane. So while the players just decide on what they're going to do, is there any way they're going to be picking a secondary or tertiary?
I find it highly unlikely. Both players have a very clear anti-mage and anti-warrior sideboard, gone in slightly different directions on both sides. I can see their reason for either one, but I think overall it's very clear their primary deck is just there. It's just rogue. It's just rogue as it currently stands. This is kind of the build that you would play on ladder. I think for a lot of players, you can substitute in maybe a walk the plank if you're facing a lot of mages on ladder.
An ooze sometimes.
Exactly, a Ken for the warriors or something like that. But this is the most standard version, and I think it gives them the best shot against the rogue mirror. Because I would argue, like, a lot of the time, back in the raiding party days, the versions that had ooze weren't even that favored in the mirror. Or I think it was keeping ooze on the mulligan didn't even raise your win rate that much against the rogues, because oozing their waggle pick was decent. It was a powerful thing to do, but hitting Miscreant was way more powerful, and hitting raiding party was way more powerful. Obviously the party's gone now, but just hitting your powerhouse cards of Edwin and Miscreant are way more important.
Yeah, there's ways you can make plays that aren't about reacting to your opponent.
Exactly.
Right? Normally when you're reacting, it's bad in most decks.
Yes,
or in
unless you're
most
specifically
matchups.
tailored
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do so.
Unless, you know, Control Warrior versus another deck. Well, yes, the deck is about reaction.
Yeah.
But in general, you want to force your opponent to react to you and not the other way around. We did have confirmation that both players are sticking on their primary deck, so not too much of a surprise, but always good to check. Because we've seen, I think, once in Grandmasters, in Asia Pacific at least, where there was like a weird switcheroo that went on with the deck picks that threw us off a little bit. You know, when who was it? Who changed? Someone changed deck to like a tertiary deck, very randomly. I can't remember who it was, but someone did. I don't know if you were here, to be honest, Derek. It could have been anyone. Oh, God, no.
We're all the same to you, aren't we?
Just a co-caster to me. Okay, well, let's go into game number 2. You know I'm joking.
You cut me
Surrender
deep, Shrek.
versus
Cut me real
Tyler.
deep.
Tell me you donkey in this.
Yes.
Okay, seems about right to me.
Oh, I like that Edwin. That is a nice Edwin.
That's a nice Edwin. Oh, what a film. And now it's just going to be how many Shrek quotes are going to come up.
Donkey!
Okay, that's a little bit much.
Bit on the nose.
Yeah, I was expecting a little bit more subtlety from you there, Derek, but okay.
You should know that by now.
Yep. Okay, well, Van Cleef for Tyler, along with the coin. A combo as old as time.
Yeah, the rat keep is kind of interesting. I mean, I think the play he's clearly setting up is rat on 2. Rat on Tui, by the way, my favorite Pixar movie.
I was waiting.
Rat on Tui into Lackey Coin Edwin on 3, I think is the current game plan.
Is it actually your favorite?
It's not my favorite, but it's, I think, criminally underrated. I think it's definitely one of the best.
Like Tangled.
I actually don't like Tangled that much. You made me sick. I'm sorry.
Okay, you remind me of the main character in Rat 2, actually. Not the rat. the human.
Oh.
That would be a little bit weird, wouldn't it?
So the useless dweeb who gets his hair pulled around by a rodent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what? Fairly accurate.
Well, joke's on you, because that makes you the rat.
I mean,
please let go of my hair.
I'm glad the camera's not on us right now. Imagine
sitting on my head.
There's a caster who's just sat on the desk, and then when the camera's off, someone comes, pulls their hair, and that's how they cast.
Imagine.
Very
Raven,
original
imagine.
film idea coming from me there. Tyler didn't rat on 2.
He did not. You know, it was far from mandated as a playwright. He has other ways he could play it, but I mean, I have to be honest. When I saw him keep the cable rat, which is not an often keep, I was trying to justify an often kept card. Sorry, I was trying to justify it, and that's the reasoning I came to.
This guy's toast.
Maybe thinks it's just a good card. You know, I don't necessarily agree, but I mean, it deserves in the deck, not a strong card in the mulligan. Is the argument I would make. Because look what he could do this turn. Like, if he'd gone for the rat last turn, we could see an incredibly large Edwin being thrown down on this turn, to which Surrender would kind of be forced to either go double Vendetta with a Henchclan Burglar exactly, or Sap.
Yeah, the weird thing would be, though, is that the dagger wouldn't be up, which means there wouldn't be a guaranteed kill on the SI.
Sorry, yeah, you're right. You are correct.
Which makes it just... Obviously, if you've got certain lackeys, if you've got the deal 2 lackey, then fantastic. It's a fantastic turn. But yeah, there was just that, because the backstab does make it look very appetizing, doesn't it?
Fair point.
But Tyler now just going for a 4/4 Van Cleef. This, although looks pretty meager, it's relatively hard to deal with for Surrender outside of, say, Blink Fox into Vendetta.
Exactly Burglar into Vendetta, because there's a rogue mirror. So
oh, sorry, yeah.
And
or
also,
just
Vendetta.
Yeah, and also like there's the one of Eviscerates, right?
Yes.
There's like a couple of cards that deal with it, but it's kind of awkward. And if it's dealt with, it's often outside of the Burglar into Vendetta, makes Surrender's turn bad, right?
Yes, exactly. And I think for Tyler is, you know, even if Henchclan Burglar plus Vendetta comes down, he has his own one in response. And I think what is more likely is just some kind of generic development from Surrender, be it Blink Fox, Henchclan Burglar, SI7, whatever. To which Tyler has the perfect response, again, of Burglar Vendetta to keep the board in his favor.
Yeah, and then you start to see the hand will kind of snowball after that, right?
Recently buffed cloning device, now 1 mana. Still probably not worth it over improved morale. Or Hand of Protection, actually.
I think.
Wow. Surrender wants some value, man. I guess, wait, it's discover a minion in your opponent's deck, right? So you could get with some reliability a Lackey Generator to go with Spirit of the Shark. Or even Edwin. Oh, no, wait, Edwin's already been played.
But he had a Lackey Generator as an option for 1 mana and didn't take it.
That's true. Well, the thing is, though, that he wants a minion Lackey Generator, right, rather than a spell, because Spirit of the Shark really wants to go with
double procs.
A minion, yeah, exactly, to get the double battle. Right.
Soul Infusion, make that rat a little bit bigger.
Oh, yes, that scene in Ratatouille where Remy gets buff. And then just beats up the food critic.
It's the extended cut version. It's only on DVD.
Director's cut.
It's on Blu-ray if anyone has those anymore. The fact that DVDs and Blu-rays feel like such a flash in the pan in terms of technology life cycle.
We're really getting into the life cycle of DVDs now, right? That is a hard step away from anything we've talked about before.
Sometimes you need to make a hard step.
What's the deal with VHS?
Remember mini discs?
No.
Yo, you probably won't.
I'm
Actually,
not 18.
I keep forgetting how old you are. Oh, anyway, back to more relevant things, like Ratatouille. Surrender's in such a difficult position because Ziliax looks like a good turn, but it also just kind of isn't. Do you think if a Shadow Steps it?
No.
Oh,
I don't like that at all.
I feel like everything Surrender's going to do for the next few turns is just not going to be close to enough.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. Like, look at how close he is to having an insane hand. Imagine if he top decks Rat off the top. Just being able to go Shark, Rat, Shadow Step it, Rat again, set up for an insane turn of Lackeys on the following turn. He's not that low on health. Like, I think Surrender has a lot of draws that pull him quite drastically back into the game. That's one of them. We could see Backstab, SI7 Agent on the Shark. Sorry, on the Fox. Or I guess Backstab the Shark, SI7 Agent the Edwin, stab the Fox, and then Edwin. It's not bad, right?
What if he just Sharks this turn?
That's also
and
very
daggers
reasonable.
the Edwin down and just takes the heat? And then
maybe
next turn, there's a much bigger turn with cloning SI, which hits for double, into Van Cleef, which hits for double. And you can whip a Shadow Step in, depending on what goes on.
Yeah, I guess you could, if he goes Shark. It's just whether or not he wants to take the damage, right? Because this play is lower power level, but it happens immediately. So he's taking less turns of damage.
I just feel like this strands a lot of cards in his hand.
I feel like it almost does, but I actually think from Surrender, the pick of exactly cloning device gets him to the point where he can very, very consistently hit those kind of cards like Evil Cable Rat or exactly Evil Miscreant. I think it's really not that unlikely to find it. One of the two, at least.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like one of us is getting cloning wrong, whether you're overestimating it and I'm underestimating it. I'm being serious though. Because for me, I just think like, well, what if he doesn't get it and then he's got nothing? And then, I feel like it's going to go one way. I'm not sure whose way it's going to go here.
Yeah, I mean, it's still cloning device, right? It's not a card that's ever seen play in Hearthstone, even at 1 mana. It's only going to be so good. But I think it allows him to go for this slightly different playstyle.
The Shark into draw now is actually pretty sick. Shark into Novice Engineer, Shadow Step.
We can see Shark, Novice Engineer, value trade, step the Edwin, play it again.
That's probably better, yeah. I actually just didn't add up the mana to make Van Cleef 1 then after the Shadow Step.
It's got to be a Shark turn this turn though, right? Yeah.
Yes, I think Surrender cannot wait. Not after seeing the 1 pick.
What's in the box? Ooh. Wow, okay, these are some cards. So now we could see Backstab. So he could just go all in on saying if you don't have Stab, the game ends. Or some way to deal with this Edwin. It could come off the Burglar.
So I might be biased because I can see this stat, and last game happened, but I think that draw means he doesn't have to do that. I think like just Backstab Vendetta, dagger the 1/1, Shadow Step the Shadow Step Novice Engineer, and just draw more cards.
Really?
I think so.
No way. Like,
Is he going clear?
He's definitely going clear. Because this is a 100%. If you do not have this card, the game ends on the spot.
That's true.
And if not,
but
the game carries on because he still has cloning device, which can find such a wide range of cards that are so good. I think if Surrender did not have cloning device, he very possibly would not have done this.
But Wand means Tyler's drawn half his deck and he gets 3 cards for 0. Yeah, I see your point. Oh, it's so rough.
I agree. He's not. It was not that likely to work, or it was not ridiculous for Tyler to have the answer. But the point I'm making is that Surrender has backup very reliably, I think, with this cloning device.
Okay, well, let's see how reliably is. That was a smooth sentence I got out.
Oof.
All right, you win this round.
That.
You win this round.
That's insane!
I hate you sometimes, Dad. You and Frozen can go and play Hearthstone together.
I don't think that me saying Miscreant is a card that's in the deck puts me on the same level as Frozen.
Well, I don't know. It's pretty high-level analysis.
It's not actually a super easy choice, though, because Novice Engineer allows for Novice, Abyss, and Edwin, and obviously draws him further into his own deck, which is pretty powerful. Miscreant gets him 4 lackeys, though. Lackeys are good. Can he afford to
full circle?
Can he afford to take that much more damage, though? Because it's not like he has that much healing. Well, none in hand at the moment, unless he takes the Zilliax, which I think would be absurd.
Go for the draw.
A very reasonably sized Edwin, I think it's fair to say.
I mean, sets up lethal perfectly.
It does set up lethal. And so for Tyler, he has no answer to it.
It's Blink Fox into Sap.
Unless he hits something off Blink Fox. He could hit Blink Fox, Sap, Walk the Plank, Assassinate.
You can also Blink Fox twice.
He can.
And remember, although Blink Fox into Vendetta does not often work, if you already have a card, then he can Blink Fox to try and get a Vendetta or something to try and add up some damage.
Yeah. It's probably a little ways off at that point. Tyler's now wondering if he should attack face and bounce the rat to get, like, exactly Ethereal Lackey, but that's probably... That's got to be...
That's less likely,
that
right?
has to be less likely, because if you get the Ethereal Lackey, you're more likely to find the answer, because it's Discover instead of Random. But you only have a 1 out of 5. Exactly. So in the end, it looks like he's not going for the answer at all, and is instead just saying, this has to be enough.
It feels bad when you've not got a Leroy in hand to make a play like this. Just get to push some damage. Does that Life Drinker SI7 agent?
He doesn't play the Life Drinker again, though.
And he doesn't Holy Light.
Which is lethal. If we had seen Life Drinker or Holy Light there, Tyler stays alive.
I was surprised he didn't play either.
Me too.
I thought he would have played one of them.
So did I.
And that's just game. Surrender. All smiles as he holds on to his match here and evens this series up 1-1. And I'm kind of surprised. I thought with Life Drinker and Holy Light, like, yes, he's a 3-3 down if he played Holy Light, but he has... when you've got that much power already represented on board and you know you aren't going to deal with it, you're taking 14 minimum, then like Holy Light really pushes the boundaries of he has to have absurd cards to kill me. Whereas not healing at all made it like, oh, well, if he has this, I'm dead. Because there was even, like Eviscerate as well. That even if you lack it into it, for example, there's enough cards that made up the damage there. Leroy plus X could have got him there.
Yeah, I guess if he goes for the...
Wait, what mana was he on?
Wait,
9, right? Because you could have had Waggle Pick as well.
Yes, right, yeah, it could have been...
There was a lot of cards. There was actually a significant amount of cards.
Yeah, I think they're from Tyler. I think it should have been Lackey and then either of the 2 healing cards, probably Life Drinker, to be perfectly honest. You know, I guess he was maybe saving Spirit the Shark, something like that. I think overall the most likely scenario, though, is he was just running out of time at the end, wanted to play something, and left himself dead to a fairly easy combination of cards, which did come through from Surrender, which you know, whether or not Tyler would have won the game had he survived the turn is another question entirely.
Right.
But he could have given himself a much higher probability of surviving until the following turn.
Yeah, I think it was the aggressive play and ignoring Edwin. Yes, he couldn't do anything about Edwin anyway, so you do have to make that play.
Yep.
But if you're going to line up an aggressive play, then I think you also make yourself safe enough to continue the aggression the following turn. And because it wasn't just exactly like Leroy plus X card, it was Leroy plus one of multiple cards that could have been drawn and played, fit in the turn fine. I think it was a little bit risky considering the, like, after casting Vendetta, that what was the Holy Light going to do next turn? Like, nothing anyway, right? The game probably ends either way.
Yeah.
Strange one.
It is, and it does mean we're going to game 3 here, right down to the wire. Again, for these players, if they win, they are not qualified through to the semi-finals. If they lose, they are not out. But losing means they are right on the brink. One more loss will send them home and out of contention to go through to the global finals, at least from Season 1 of players. They'd have another chance in Season 2.
Yeah, and funnily enough, it's a bit of a weird way that the group could shake out anyway, but I feel like the person who wins here has a fairly solid chance at actually winning the group, because then they directly go to face Shaxi.
Yep.
Which means, you know, Rogue versus Mage I think is reasonably decent for the Rogue.
Yes.
Which means they win the group, but the way, because it's a 3-man group, it means the other Rogue player will also then face Shaxi, which then has a decent chance of getting through the group.
True.
So I feel like because of how it's just laid out right now with 2 Rogues and 1 Mage, I feel like both Rogue players, win or loss, are going to be feeling at least comfortable knowing that their next matchup is probably going to be against Shaxi if everything goes to plan.
Yeah.
But the second Shaxi wins, they'd have to play like another mirror to carry on. It would be, it would feel, you want to play 2 mirrors to try and get through to playoffs. Sorry, to the last day of playoffs would feel awkward. I would not enjoy that person.
Yeah, I think both of these players would definitely rather go up against the Mage. I definitely don't think it's an especially favorable matchup. I think it's really, really close. And as, you know, I think players, to be honest, have kind of plateaued with Rogue in terms of how good the overall player base at the top of the game has gotten at it. Whereas I would say with Mage, players continue to get better with the deck because it's so difficult, in my opinion, so difficult to play correctly, that as players get better, I think the matchup will edge closer and closer to a true even matchup. And one of my favorites to watch as well. I do like a Rogue versus Mage.
It's because they're both as overpowered as each other.
Right, exactly.
It's one of the funny things, isn't it, when like we've seen, oh, classes need nerfs, you know, decks, cards, etc. need nerfs.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, just buff everything else, make everything broken.
I love buffs, dude.
Like, it would be so
I
nuts.
love buffs, dude. Not I love buff dudes. Although
there's nothing wrong with that, Derek.
You know.
There's nothing wrong with that. You do you. That's all that matters.
I'm not saying I don't love buff dudes.
Uh-oh. Let's just go straight away from this conversation and straight into game number 3, Surrender versus Tyler. And this is for effectively just quite a significant advantage to go through to tomorrow in the group.
Big time. Yeah, again, with the discussion can rage on and on, but you would definitely, I think, rather face the Mage than the Rogue mirror again. Especially as both of these players have a somewhat anti-Mage teched primary with the Eviscerate in there, which definitely helps them in that matchup, and then a tertiary anti-Mage deck for both of these players. So yes, again, given that they have no anti-Rogue teched tertiary or secondary deck, it's not looking great. Speaking of not looking great, Tyler, I think, was just trying to do an L sign there. Got it the wrong way round, it's worth saying. But with the
camera
issues. I think he's realizing this hand is not a winner as it currently stands.
No, his next draws, he literally has to chain into like Miscreant into Shark as his next draws to get cooking, whereas Surrender's hand, I think, it's fantastic.
Juice. This is I mean, it's not the nuts from Surrender, but it's bloomin' good.
You'd be, if this was your hand every game, you'd be very, very happy.
Yes. I would be rank 1 legend. Actually, I probably wouldn't, but I'd be less of a bad rank than I currently am. Yeah. I'll have you know, I high rolled my way to legend.
Did you play Mage?
I did not actually. I was.
Oh, really?
It's even more embarrassing than that. I was playing a bunch of Mage and I couldn't get past rank 4. Like, even though I've got Legend with Mage the last couple of months, and I love that deck, I just couldn't win with it this time. And I switched to War Control's Aggro Shaman. Just like absolutely demolished everyone. Like, it wasn't. It didn't even feel close.
That deck's actually pretty fun.
It's so sick. 15 2-offs. Just
Blinkfox going to come down now for Surrender. He's not going for that early miscreant, and I think, honestly, it's...
Surrender's face like...
It's because he doesn't gain tons of advantage from having the lackeys in hand right now.
Yeah.
Whereas having a 3-3 on the board is just a reasonable threat.
Yeah, I think this is, this is reasonable, right? Like, if possible, Surrender definitely wants to move towards coin togwaggle would be the absolute dream if he's able to stick a lackey going into step 5, which, I don't know, as it currently stands, doesn't seem ridiculous. Like, if we see backstab miscreant on this turn, either kobold lackey or goblin lackey would allow him to clear off the miscreant, and I guess the dagger would take care of the other lackey, but either way, he's still got a lot of lackeys to go with the cable rat as well.
I think after seeing backstab, just the Henge Clan Burglar feels really good this turn. Oh, he's going to get the miscreant active, okay.
I think I like this. I think you just want to go as wide as possible, as soon as possible.
Got the Witchy Lackey for the evolve potential. Does he need to discover a spell this turn? I feel like the Ethereal Lackey, not only just overall, in my opinion, the best, but also the best with Shark too. Discovering the more spells, and because it's a discover, it just feels so powerful in Rogue.
I think it's like overall the best. I think these are like the two that he didn't want to see in this situation though, because Kobold or Goblin allows him to clear off the miscreant, which is pretty huge. And Faceless just allows him to go wide. Like, imagine if he had double Faceless Lackey here, he'd just coin them both out and be in a fantastic spot.
Ooh.
Those are some fantastic options, though. He steps them. Oh, okay. No. Yeah, this is smart.
0 mana.
Yes. I always get surprised when I see players not Shadow Step the Miscreant, but yes, to set up for Togwaggle next turn or turn 6, this is correct.
Killer card on offer for Tyler as the sap is there. Feels like it's been quite influential in this mirror match so far.
It really does.
The Eviscerate could line up.
It's not bad, yeah. Tyler needs to consider what kind of a hand he has at the moment, because Eviscerate can go face, which definitely gives it a lot of merit in this kind of a matchup, especially as he has double Vendetta already, which means as soon as he picks up a Henge Clan Burglar, that's already a tremendous amount of removal.
So he needs Violet Haze and Necrium Vial to combo together.
Sure.
Yeah, Betrayal seems okay. He's gone for Violet Haze though. Okay. I'm a little bit surprised. I think Betrayal just often gets something. Even if it just kills 2 lackeys.
Betrayal wasn't going to be very good. Oh, Violet Haze can... Oh, it can activate his Vendettas, right? Because it just has 2 random death ratchets, so they could be from another class.
True.
That's a pretty big merit, I would say. Like, the difference between having 4 mana and 0 mana Vendettas is huge.
How many classes have class Death Rattle minions? Is there a lot of them?
I mean, I don't think there's loads of them, but I think they all have Death Rattles in them, at least one.
I guess so. Now though, Surrender's going to face down a huge Van Cleef here. He does have sap available though. But now, I think because of this Van Cleef, he's just shying away from this Togwaggle plan.
Just doesn't feel comfortable. I wonder if we'll see the Ethereal Lackey though, because obviously he does not have to save it to go for Togwaggle next turn.
Ooh.
Wow.
That's a good one.
It'll help though.
I mean, is there ever a reason not to? Is that the
Queen walk the plank? Because he could zap it, he could pick walk the plank, but he doesn't have to play it. But Shadow Step's also just a not so powerful card with this hand. I like this.
Sap it this turn.
Yeah.
And then walk the plank it when you need to.
Right, exactly. Make him spend the mana on making a bigger Edwin, when in all likelihood, Tyler cannot do it in Edwin at that level. Oh! Silverback Patriarchy is the nuts! Protecting the rest of his lackeys. That's insane. I'm just putting that in Rogue.
It's like Evil Miscreant, but with Taunt. It's like so much more powerful. It's like a whole extra keyword.
Silverback Patriarch is literally strictly better Evil Miscreant. And look, there we have it. The Henge Clan
Wait, what?
What's that card even called? The Shade Quill
Oh, yeah.
from Priest. I forgot that it can give Death Rattle cards, not just minions as well. The Serrated Tooth off the...
Serrated Tooth just isn't a
pretty
bad
interesting.
card, especially in this matchup. Gaining the sort of live tempo from some minions you played.
Serrated Tooth, it could actually just be insane. A big Edwin rushing in, even just a Shade Quill.
Well, I know Serrated Tooth was messed around with, I think, with Bunny Hopper and Viper when they were building Bunny Rogue. Right?
Yes, yeah, I know that Sir Salty as well, a UK Hearthstone player, was messing around with a version of the deck with a Serrated Tooth as well.
It's really just...
I wrecked him with it though.
I think it's just another Rogue card that is actually good,
It is good.
but not good enough in Rogue today.
The effect it gives is just a base level in a vacuum, very powerful.
Still, not as good as Dr. Boom's effect, but it is a 1-mana card versus a 7-mana legendary.
Yes, I mean... These Witchy Lackeys have not been all too kind to Surrender though. Like, he just wants one that he can throw down that's just good, like the Faceless or the Ethereal to go with Togwaggle probably next turn, as I imagine it's likely to be.
What if he just pulls the trigger on Tog now?
Tank the 8?
There's a 5/5 on the board that you'll have. You get to wand, and then either if he doesn't trade, walk the plank it next turn. If he does trade, well, it's going to die to Eviscerate. He's not going to. He's going to play it safer.
I think it's very reasonable to assume that next turn, especially with the minion he currently has in play now, that he will be facing down less pressure. And health is a very, very, valuable resource at this point.
Everywhere.
Got to be said as well though for Tyler, this this Violet Haze has been pretty decent. Just getting him another thing he can throw down and activating the Vendetta.
That was like weird mana usage from Tyler.
What, that he didn't go with the Vendetta?
Yeah. He used an Eviscerate, which, yes, used up his mana better, but now his Vendetta's not live.
Right, I mean, well,
And
I think it very possibly was he played the Shade Quill and then realised, oops.
Yeah. Because that's what I mean, that, like, I get using your mana, but now
if
you
it
have to use
stayed zero?
more. Yeah. If it stayed 0, then you go, okay, one Eviscerate's fine to keep the flexibility of Vendetta at 0 mana later.
I
But
agree.
I think that might have just been a mistake. Because Eviscerate can also go face.
I mean, it plays to the top deck of Henge Clan Burglar, but I agree that's
Oh.
That feels good.
Job done.
Also, so Tyler maybe naturally going to have to play slower because of this Shade Quill. He's going to heal Surrender up when he dies.
And I think the fact he's doing that pretty well, right? Like, I think tanking the damage is pretty smart because he has so much healing. He's going to need a lot of healing though, because from Surrender, this is going to be a powerhouse turn. This is going to be insane. How does he sequence it correct? Like, I mean, at the moment I'm looking at Vendetta, Eviscerate, Labracruiter.
What about Life Drinker Shuffle?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if that's good or bad. Like, is a Life Drinker better than your average draw as it currently stands? I'm not sure it is. Maybe it is.
I think it might be. How do you ever die? With the, if you chain like Life Drinkers?
I guess he's got a lot of value already. He just wants to find Shark though, right? And
That is
like
true.
the real powerhouse cards.
But he also does the same thing of asking Tyler, does he have an answer to Van Cleef?
I mean, he could even go for the Labracruiter last and shuffle the Edwin from even suffering a -2/-2. Or he could just do this.
Yeah. This is also a play.
Ooh, okay, these are some powerful combo cards here. So he doesn't even actually have to use the sap on this turn, does he? Because Eviscerate plus SI with the Shark is a clear on the Edwin. And then he could even give Rush to his other minions, which will allow him to clear off the rest, even taking a value trade with the Shade Quill.
Yeah, put the Life Drinker into one of them.
Yes. It
Value the Shade Quill into the Life Drinker, kill the Van Cleef.
just depends whether he favors the sap more. I think I'd probably like that more, right? Because if you sap the Edwin and it comes down even bigger, then you have no answer. Yeah, yeah.
You can't say that you can guarantee clear it. Whereas this turn, it does die.
Interesting.
One thing that's going to be difficult for Tyler, and I'm not sure if this has influenced his decision right now or not, is that he just has no stuff anymore, and Surrender has a lot.
Yeah.
So like he needs to do something
I guess
about the game. So he saved an Eviscerate by using
the
a
higher
sap.
regression line, I suppose.
Ooh.
Well, triple
Clean.
warpath plus Edwin. That's pretty nuts.
Should he have?
The Brotherhood shall
Should he ever Vendetta there?
Just for +2/+2. While it
Yeah.
costs
You go
0.
to 10. 10's pretty hard. 8's doable by Rogue. 10's a lot harder.
Wait, oh no, Vendetta always costs 0 because it came off the
Yeah.
the wand.
Yeah, I more mean just to
Right,
proc.
sorry.
Because like 10 instead of 8, I feel is the world of difference versus Rogue.
Is it?
Well, Vendettas, Eviscerates.
Yeah, but I mean, he's already seen Eviscerate. Well, he's seen both Vendettas already, right? He's seen an Eviscerate
just like
as
discover
well.
effects, and I don't know.
I think I like holding on to the Vendetta. I think that's more. It's more likely to go wrong with just him needing to swing tempo in his favor. Tyler here, I mean, you know, the line of play he went for, it had its merits because it got him more bored immediately at the potential risk of having to face exactly this. I mean, I don't mean exactly Warpath, but some kind of clear and then an Edwin that he cannot deal with. Because as it currently stands, I mean, he can deal with the Edwin.
It's just unfun.
It's everything. It's all his resources that go into it.
Guess if he does that, does he actually Shadow Step the Zilliax to try and guarantee more health the turn after?
No. Right, like he has to save the Shadow Step to go for a Miscreant off the top or whatever.
But then how does he proc the Mystery? He has to wait like 2 turns, right?
Yeah, I guess. Actually,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
He'd have to play it, step it, and then play it again.
Yeah. Just gonna concede.
Doesn't even see it as worth playing out.
Yep, and that's going to be it. Surrender moves through, and a
Wow.
bit of game kind of finished out nowhere, to be honest.
I was
Like,
kind of caught by surprise.
Me and Darren were just talking about Shadow Steps, and suddenly the game's over.
Yeah.
It ends, but Tyler conceding that. I think there were a couple of plays that, if I'm honest, kind of led Tyler to losing that series. I think there was definitely a few things he could have done differently.
Yeah.
Whether that's altered by our caster vision, of course, is a different question. But I think some of the saps and maybe just some of the other turns could have been done the other way around, obviously, that we could see would have been a little bit more safer, and maybe they were safer just more consistently.
Well, you know, like I said, his plays had merits, right? Because the play that he went for of sapping the Edwin and then following up with more board presence, it meant he didn't have to sacrifice off his minions with the swing of the Serrated Tooth and then rushing them in, which meant if Surrender did not have the board clear, he could maybe go for an aggression game and top deck Edwin and then go Edwin Leroy Shadow Step, stuff like that. Go for the lethal a little bit quicker. It clearly did not work out because there was the Warpath there which completely cleared it. But I don't even know if it didn't have to be exactly Warpath. It could have just been, any kind of clear off of a randomly generated effect, but also just Vendettas, backstabs, SI7 agents, lackeys, things like that.
I think although rogue matches recently, or current meta, can get a little bit weird because of all the discovers, lackey involvements, but I feel like that one was just a weird rogue mirror. It were just strange things that happened from both sides. I'm not even on about players' plays, just the outcomes of the game as well. I do think we are just going to go to a break now. Oh, we're going to look at the bracket, actually. Sorry, apologies. We've got the updated bracket. So Surrender is going to go through. He's going to be playing Shaxi. And then the loser of that match will go down there and play against Tyler. Loser of that match is out. The winner stays in.
That's right. As you can see, the 2 spots at the end there with the crowns on top, that means you're through to the semi-finals. So Shaxi or Surrender, either of those players win, guaranteed through to the semi-finals. The loser still has a shot, but Tyler now going to be fighting for his tournament life in the next match.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit tense a little bit later, but we are just going to go to a quick break and sort out the next match and get that one ready for you guys. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with some more Grandmasters playoffs.